Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about some tips on how to maintain your asphalt driveway.
Is asphalt and blacktop driveways the same thing?
Yeah, people call it my blacktop driveway, which is basically just an asphalt driveway.
What is asphalt?
So asphalt is a form of petroleum, and it's found in lakes, which is pretty interesting. And so it can be semi-solid, it can be almost like a goo, or it can be kind of solid rock that they can break up and melt. You know, it's just this sticky petroleum-based, naturally occurring product. And what's wild is they've found this thousands of years ago. They were able to use it for sealing up things, waterproofing things. They used it for boats, for waterproofing. And around 600 BC, they were actually starting to use it to cover some of these brick and stone roads. So they'd mix it in with the stick, and it would dry and kind of get hard. And it did a really nice job. For some of the first kings were using this right around their palace so that they had a nice smooth ride.
Did they get potholes too?
No, they had slaves, so that stuff was done right away, man. But the ancient Egyptians, they used asphalt to waterproof their temple baths. They used it like a mortar. So in 1595, Sir Walter Raleigh found this lake of asphalt in Trinidad, and he used it to caulk his ships. So the natives were showing him, how effective this was. And he had a couple quotes in his diary. One was, "This is a most excellent good." And another quote was, "It melteth not with the sun." So straight from Sir Walter's mouth. Excellent for ships, for waterproofing. And then in the U.S., in the 1860s, they started using asphalt for sidewalks and some roads. In 1896 in New York, they actually started replacing some of the cobblestone with asphalt, and they said it was just such a better ride for horses and carriages and things.
Right.
Then it just became very popular. In fact, now in the U.S., over 90% of all roads are paved with asphalt, which is pretty interesting. And also what I found fascinating was 99%. So when they tear up the roads and they redo them, 99% of the asphalt that they remove, they recycle, and it's the most recycled material that we have in the U.S.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's nice that everything that you see tore up, and we're sitting and waiting in this traffic. At least they're reusing it, and it's hopefully saving some money and some material.
So now you want to jump to the topic at hand.
Okay,
which
is okay.
So how long does a asphalt driveway last?
Most should last. If you have good workmanship, they should last over 20 years. But the key thing is protecting it. So putting a thin coat of a top coat, a sealer, every few years. And in fact, in general, if you just want kind of a general guide, if you live in an area where it freezes, so you have really cold seasons, you should recoat your driveway about every 3 years if you have a blacktop drive. And then in warm weather areas where you don't get a hard freeze, they say once about every 4 years is really excellent. The exception is if you live in a desert, you're really just looking at when it starts to turn gray.
Right.
And that shows that it's oxidizing, it's breaking down the bonds of the asphalt. And so, then you're going to start having problems, because once water starts penetrating, you're not only going to break down the aggregate in that, but you're going to get down to the base, and that's going to start to move. Then you really get some movement in your driveway.
So that's when you have to tear it all up?
Yeah, which you want to try to protect at all costs, because it's pretty inexpensive and it's not that big of a job to maintain a blacktop driveway. So, the main thing is small cracks. Extreme heat and cold, when water gets in there. So if you live in a cold weather area, if you have tiny cracks, water gets in there, and that freeze-thaw cycle is what just starts breaking it up, getting hairline cracks. Once those cracks open up a little bit all summer, when the sun gets in there baking it, it actually shortens the life and dries out the edges there. So it's so important that every year, if you see tiny cracks, just get a little crack filler and fill all those in, and it's going to, just prevent this damage from water. And even if you live in a warm weather area, that water getting in there, if ants get in there, actually ants, believe it or not, do a ton of damage. So if they get in here and they start to create little tunnels and they find a source of food or water and they start creating a colony through these cracks under your foundation, they say that it actually does a lot of damage. In fact, that's one of the main things that contractors are supposed to do. So if you're having a driveway done, make sure that your contractor is putting down a really good insect control so that you're avoiding that from day one, and then a real good herbicide. You don't want any weed seeds getting in there and causing some damage, any movement.
So what causes the cracks in the driveway?
Well, initially, if you have bad workmanship, if they don't have a really good mix, that can cause some minor cracks. If there's extreme heat and cold, water freezing, that freeze-thaw cycle is going to cause cracks. If you don't have edge restraints, so when your contractor builds it, it's nice if he has some type of edging so that it doesn't lose its strength on the edges. Tree roots, ants can really be a problem. And then just the sun slowly drying it out can cause oxidation and small cracks. And then those small cracks, if they're holding water, can start to cause bigger cracks. And then, of course, anywhere where it freezes in the winter, that's really it. As asphalt gets really frozen, it gets more brittle, and when you have a heavy car on top of it, it causes stress cracks, and then those can open up and cause more damage. And then fuel and oil, if you're not cleaning up, if you have an old car that's constantly leaking fuel or oil onto asphalt, it slowly breaks down, it softens it, and that can cause damage, and that actually creates some potholes. Then after cracks, the next thing we're worried about is dips, like little depressions. And those are primarily when you have large, heavy objects on your asphalt driveway and you don't move it for long periods of time, or like your dad's driveway.
Well, I mean, they redid their driveway probably 5 years ago where they had it all dug up and, smoothed out and everything. And we did their driveway last year because it was, the sides and stuff were cracking, and then he had these huge divots again because he parks in the exact same spot
It's amazing. He's got
day.
it down to a science.
Well, he says, it's like yesterday we were over there, filling cracks and stuff, and he said, he just waits till he gets to the dip.
when he falls into it.
I'm like, really?
Which don't do. So here's a tip.
If you park a little bit off every day.
Just vary. If you're parking on your asphalt driveway, just vary it, because absolutely, I've seen proof. You will create these depressions.
You look at my parents' driveway. On my dad's side of the driveway, there's the dips.
Right.
On my mom's side of the driveway, because Dad was saying yesterday that she just jams it into park. She doesn't care where she parks. Well, it's a driveway, right? As long as,
so you're in it.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I don't understand.
So, and then the depressions, they actually become potholes because as it holds water, that water sitting on it, over time, just slowly breaks down the surface, and then those minor cracks can become worse and worse. So it's good to catch those areas.
Well, filling the cracks was super easy. Filling those potholes that was terrible.
Right, and you've got to use a special type of patch if you want to build up a depression compared to a pothole.
Right.
So a couple different techniques. And in fact, if we want to talk, a couple tricks. If you want to fill depressions first, and you don't want those to become potholes, and because you don't want standing water, kind of a trick is take a hose and flood your driveway, and then you'll immediately see, like your dad's, there's 4 nice little depressions that he had, and you can take a little chalk and just outline that, and then they've got a couple products, and if you go to your home center or hardware store, they're going to have depression fillers, and you're not looking for cold patch, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes if you're filling a hole. You're looking for something that you can build up thin layers so that you can just get rid of that depression. So Rust-Oleum actually makes a product. It's called Epoxy Shield Depression Filler, and it all says in the name, and you just put super thin coats of this until you get the whole area level. And then Latexite, it's LATEX-ITE. They actually have a product called Trowel Patch, and it really got great reviews on 2 or 3 of the sites that I looked at, and then in one of our magazines where they review products, it got very good reviews. The only thing they said about it, almost everybody had a comment, it really stinks. and we're talking smell.
Yeah.
But other than smell, they said it really did an excellent job and really held up. And, some of these, though, you have to definitely look at, and a lot of these products, we always say, look at the packaging. Because a few of the products I looked at, some of them require a primer. So it's a special driveway primer that you're going to paint on first so that this thin patch sticks and bonds really well. And that's also the case if you have oil spots and grease spots. Before you recoat your driveway, you want to make sure that you get it up first as much as you can with a detergent and a good stiff bristle brush.
Right.
But then if it's bad or you can see it really, water's beating off of it, you'd want to use a primer on that so that the top coat sticks really well.
What kind of drying time are we looking at for these products?
As far as, everyone is different. Some, they want you to cure a week. Some, I think it's 30 days on a couple of these products.
So I would say that's a big part of redoing your driveway. If you have cracks or, these potholes or, depressions, you have to really plan out when you're going to do this, because it's not just, I'm going to do this all in one day.
Yep, absolutely. And read the instructions, because there's so many proprietary formulas, and they won't tell you what the contents are, and they each have a specific drying time. Again, these scientists are developing these things so they really bond and stick together, and so the curing rate is much different for all of them, and you want it to fully cure before you put a top coat on so that it actually is hard and solid.
Because otherwise you're just wasting money.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's going to peel up.
Right.
Which is why waste that. In fact, one philosophy which a couple of companies have is do all of your cracks and all this stuff at the end of the summer. You want it warm. And in fact, a lot of people tend to do this at the end of the year when it's really cool. Because you kind of want the UV light. You kind of want nice, warm, sunny days in a series of days so that it cures really well. You don't want these damp, cool days. So at the end of summer, a couple of the companies recommend that you do all your crack filling and potholes and any depressions and let that just cure all winter, and then come the beginning of summer the next year, now it's solid, and you put your top coat over it, and you're going to have a much better finish.
So the beginning of summer or the beginning of spring?
Most of these companies are saying that early spring and late fall are kind of the worst time, which most people like it because it's cool. But for a lot of these products, they want above 50 degrees, and they want it really nice and sunny for a few days in a row because the UV light is curing a lot of these products.
Well, it's funny, like being in hardware as long as we've had, driveway sealer always goes on sale in fall.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's
because it is. Well, it depends on the days. If you've got nice,
right,
above,
an Indian
above
summer, 50, I guess.
But the key is you want it warm and you want it sunny, and it's going to do the best job of curing, and you're going to have a wonderful finish.
So, is there a difference between like a driveway sealer and a driveway filler?
So some are called filler sealers, and they have particles in there to fill small hairline cracks. And it used to always be sand, so you'd get a coating, a top coat that was real thin if you had a real nice looking asphalt driveway, and then if you had small hairline cracks, you'd get a filler sealer, and they used to always just put sand in there, and that would just kind of have some body in there. And now a lot of them are using all kinds of different solids in there, so it really depends on the company and the formula they use. But basically, if you see something that says sealer, filler, it's for
you to say.
Hairline cracks on your driveway. And there's a couple different types you can look for. So there's coal tar, which really resists water, oil, and gas. It stands up to sunlight. But the problem is there's a lot of cities that are banning now coal tar.
Why?
Because of the high VOC levels. So that's kind of the con with some of these coal tar.
What does VOC stand for?
Volatile organic compounds, which we do not want in the atmosphere. And then you have just a basic asphalt that's really good, resisting water, oil, and gas, but it doesn't stand up to sunlight as well as coal tar, so you have to cover it more often. It has lower VOCs, and it's a little more expensive. And then there's acrylic polymers, there's water-based types. So what I found was very interesting that there's no standard grading system depending on the product.
Really?
Over and over, what they say is just look at the warranty. You're basically going to get what you pay for, and the best formulas with the best warranties are leaving the largest amount of solids, which is going to bond to the surface and give you the longest life.
What kind of warranties are we talking about?
So anything from a couple years to over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So huge difference. Again, we're looking at the label. And some of them, there's not that much difference in the price. So look at the label, and you're looking for the best, longest warranty.
Do you have any companies that you would recommend?
Well, a few jumped out. They have in the company called Blackjack. They have a couple products, for like $16. You can get something that has a 3-year warranty. Then they have for $24 a 6-year warranty. And for a 10-year warranty, they have an asphalt-based sealer. This is Blackjack, and it's $34. Cures in 24 to 48 hours. And they actually want you to put 2 thin coats. So this Blackjack was kind of unusual. Most of the other companies I saw, they say just 1 thin coat once every few years. So Henry, and we've used this, we had this at the hardware store, customers really liked it. They have a few different styles. Their 5-year runs around $20. They have a 7-year that I used at your dad's house, and it's $34, and it's kind of a rubberized gel. You don't have to stir it as much. And then one that came up over and over is that Latex-ite. So it's LATEX-ITE. We
didn't spell the other company.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
But they have a wide variety. So they have a 10-year for around $30. And this is nice because it again, only uses 1 thin coat. It dries for foot traffic in 4 hours, and then they say you can drive your car on it in 24 hours. And then they have a variety of other ones from a 4-year around $20. Again, you're really looking at the label. You're making sure that you have the right products. Some of these, depending on what formula it is, they want you to just use the squeegee side of one of those applicators.
The driveway brush.
The driveway brush. And like the Henry that I used at your parents' house, they want you to use the brush part because they want you to put 1 thin coat, but they want that brush side to get into the little nicks and crevices of the driveway. So it's interesting. There's a little subtle difference. Again, read the label. There's 1 or 2 products I saw, these new formulations that actually go on with a roller cover. They say it's a very thin product, and they want you to put it on super thin.
So you're like painting it on?
So you're just like you would paint it on. So very interesting. I've never tried those. I'd like to give it a try and see how they work. But again, read the instructions.
So we've done a lot of videos at my parents' house on driveway sealer.
Right, and you can check them out at the Fix It Home Improvement channel on YouTube.
Right, so fixing cracks, the divots from my dad, and sealing the driveway. So why don't you explain how to do all this?
So the first thing, every year you want to check for cracks and definitely seal them up. You want to get a screwdriver or something to dig out any weeds, any loose material. So every one of your cracks, you get it clean, and then you're going to take a hose and you're going to blow out anything that you've dug out. If it's in an area where you have oil spots or gas, you want to use a little detergent in there. But basically, you're just removing the loose material. It's good to have asphalt damp when you're doing these repairs, but you don't want any standing water. So you're going to use a push broom or you're going to use a leaf blower. In fact, I used that new Ego cordless blower, which is great, so convenient. You don't have cords or gas to worry about. But you blow it out, and then you're going to use your crack repair product, and basically it comes in caulking tubes or liquid jugs. And
we've used both now.
Right. So
the one is a pourable jug.
Yeah, which is great. You shake it for a minute or two, and you just cut the tip off. And
it's not as thick as the caulk.
Yeah, I would say if you have wider cracks and you're really trying to fill the void, that the caulk does a nice job. We always carried the Henry products at the store, and so they do a good job, have always had good reviews with their products.
Well, last year when we did my parents' driveway and it was in rough shape, they had really big cracks that were deep. We used the caulk style, and then this year, we were just,
patching smaller cracks that occurred.
Right, so we used the pourable stuff, and that was a lot easier.
Yeah, much easier. So if you have anything smaller then half an inch wide, and you want it to be not more than a half an inch deep. You usually want it about a half an inch to a quarter inch. If it's deeper than that, you want to pour some sand into it, raise that up, and then the crack filler, you're not going to waste it first off, and then the crack filler actually isn't going to do as good a job if it's too thick. So pour in some sand, get it up to about a half an inch to a quarter inch. Use your crack filler. You want it pretty much even with the top of the driveway. You can use just a putty knife to smooth that out. And then if it's larger than a half an inch, then that's when you're going to want to use a cold patch. That's the heavy bodied asphalt that you're going to put in there and tamp down. So once you fill it, then the key thing is you just want it to cure. Like this I think the liquid product that we used, I think it said allows 7 days to cure.
Right.
Some of them are just a few days.
Some of them 24 hours.
So again, look at the label. It should be 50 degrees or warmer, and there should be no rain in the forecast for 48 hours. So very easy. Something that you should do every year is just fill these cracks if you have an asphalt driveway.
And pay attention to how much it'll cover, too, because I was shocked at how this one jug did the whole driveway. They got a 2-car driveway.
It was a gallon jug, and a couple of them were pretty large cracks.
Right,
and actually quite a few that we filled, and there were, I don't even think I used half. So it really goes a long way. So it's very economical and easy way to maintain your driveway, keep those cracks from getting bigger. And then one thing I saw that I've never tried is this latex-ite. They have... It's
You're
called.
Going to spell it?
No, I'm going to spell the next thing though. They have a product. Everything they have hyphens on everything they have. So this product is called Plystix. It's PLI-STIX, and this has gotten really good reviews. And I watched a couple of videos. It's almost like a rope, and you force it in. They say it's especially good where the driveway meets the garage, that border,
right.
And then where it meets the street or the sidewalk. And to fill in any gaps there and to give it kind of some body, you force this rope into it. You can actually cut it down if you need to. And then you take a propane torch, and you melt it into place. And it melts smooth. And then it's completely flexible, so it has really nice body to it. So it really defines a crack, especially in borders. So that's kind of an interesting product if you're trying to tighten up or clean up.
I always wondered what that was used for.
Yeah, so it looks very interesting.
So let's get into some bigger problems, either depressions or potholes.
Okay, so on the depressions, we can use that thin product that we slowly build it up. But if you have a true pothole where you have a depression and you have missing pieces and it's cracking, what you want to do is clean all that debris out of there and clean the area. So you want to use some type of detergent, blow it in there with a hose end sprayer, and then use a push broom to get out. You don't want
any cleaners that you would recommend?
I've always used Simple Green. It's a concentrate. It's always done a really nice job for me. And there's a couple other products. There's a Oil Eater, Crud Cutter we sold, and a lot of people like that. But I've always just gone with Simple Green. And once you clean it, you can kind of create the outline, so you can make a nice defined outline with a hammer and a cold chisel, so that when you tamp this down, there's something to lay against.
Right.
You don't really want it kind of floating. Or you can use a circular saw with an abrasive masonry bit, or a masonry blade, or a diamond blade.
Right.
And you can kind of create a nice square outline, clean up any loose stuff, and then you're going to put some cold patch in there. I like, we use that Henry in the buckets, and it was really nice. Sometimes you get it in the bags, and if it's at the hardware store and they've had bags stacked on bags, sometimes it really becomes hard to work with. So get some cold patch, fill the hole, and you want it to be about an inch or an inch and a half above the surface, which seems really high. But the key for this to work, so you've got this cold patch is asphalt and aggregate, so they've got some fine stone material in there. And you want to pound it down. So some people will just use like a scrap piece of 4x4.
Right.
But if you go to the rental center, you can get one of those tampers, which is what we ran and got. And for around $10, you can get it for 24 hours. And then you just pound this thing down.
Be prepared to work.
Yeah. And with my chicken muscles.
Yeah, your chicken muscles got to work out that day.
It was strenuous. But the key is compression. So you need to pound this. Some guys, what they'll do is they'll take a scrap piece of plywood, they'll throw it over the top, and then roll the car back and forth over it to really compress it down. But it does a fantastic job. Most of them, you want this to cure for about a month before you seal coat it.
Right.
So again, look at the instructions, see how long you need to let it cure, but it does a great job. And once you create this patch and you keep sealing over it, I've had fantastic luck with it.
Why don't you cover the steps on how to seal a driveway then?
Okay, so we've done all our filling our cracks, our potholes, we've let them cure. I always like to take so you're buying your product, whatever guarantee you like. Warranty. You take those 5-gallon containers. I always like to flip them upside down 24 hours before I do the project. And then we're going to sweep down the driveway, either sweep it, use a leaf blower on it. You're going to then clean it really well. So put some detergent in a hose end sprayer, hose it off real good. Again, use a stiff bristle brush. Any areas where there's oil or gas, I would really make sure it's cleaned well. And then hit that area with a little bit of water and see if it beads up. If it looks like it's just really stained bad, the asphalt, you might want to use a little oil spot primer on that area so that the top coat sticks to it much better. You definitely don't want any standing water. Damp is really good, especially on a warm day. So wash it down. Any areas where there's standing water, either blow it off, brush it off, and then take the time to mix the product. You really want to stir it like crazy. You can either use a mixer on the end of a drill, which I like to do, or take, again, depending on the product. Some say it doesn't need stirring, but always take the time to stir it a little because it's just going to do a better job. From all the research I've done, the more you stir it, the better the finished product.
So what should you stir it with?
I like like the stirrers for 5 gallons of paint that you attach to a drill. I like that type of stirring paddle.
If you don't have that?
If you don't have that, just use a stick, a 2x4, a 1x2, and just go at it. Just sit down, take at least 5 or 10 minutes. Most of them recommend a full 5 minutes, which is quite a bit of time. And then you want to make sure that it's 50 degrees or warmer, and there's no rain in the forecast for at least 48 hours. I would do it early in the day so the sun has all day to help cure this, and you want to start from the highest point of the driveway, depending on how your house is set up, usually by the garage, and you're going to work your way down. I always like using a paintbrush, near anywhere where there's concrete. So near the garage or the sidewalks, I always grab just a wide, 3-inch wide paintbrush, and I'll just do those areas so I don't have to get real close with, the spreader itself. And then you're going to pour a strip across the width of it. So let's say we're working down from the garage towards the street. I'm going to pour a 12-inch wide about strip of the sealer all the way across, and then I'm going to start pulling this product down to about 3 feet wide. I actually try to crisscross when I do it, so I'll pull it from left to right, and then I'll pull it down, so I'll kind of go back over my work. But I'm pulling it as thin as I can, and that's really the key. Even some of these products where they say you can put 2 thin coats, from the research I did, most of these companies say you're going to have the best success if you just put 1 thin coat and then just wait about 3 or 4 years and put another thin coat. If you put it on too thick, you have the chance of it peeling up. It's not going to cure properly. You're going to drag this into the house. So 1 thin coat. And then if you have a large driveway where you're going to be intermixing multiple 5-gallon containers, I would use maybe about a quarter or half of that first 5er and then mix some of the second 5er into it and mix it.
Right.
Just intermix it. Always keep a wet edge so you never want to stop in the middle of this. Once you get going, it's time to finish the job, and that way you're not going to have any weird marks and any different drying areas.
And this part does not take that long.
No, it doesn't. And if you put it on and you put it on thin, it's not that difficult. It's actually not a bad job. Once you get it all down, you're going to block off your driveway. You want it to cure for at least 24 hours. It really depends on the product. Again, look at the label. And, you're probably going to save, 50 to 70% of the money compared to having a company come and do it.
Right.
And it's not that difficult.
I think the biggest mistake everybody makes is they either put it on too thick,
Right.
and they're buying too much product too.
Absolutely.
Read the labels to see how much it's going to cover, because a lot of these customers, for at our stores, they're buying 2 5-gallon buckets of this. I really don't think most people have that big of a driveway.
Absolutely. And some of them, if you have a very smooth driveway, a 5-gallon container is going to cover 400 to 500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have a rough driveway, a lot of cracks or it's very porous, it's going to still cover 300 to 400 square feet per 5-gallon container.
So you have anything else to add?
I think those are the basics.
All right, that wraps up this episode then.
You can subscribe if you like the show on iTunes or Stitcher.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can also check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
You see a lot of videos about my parents' driveway. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
If you'd like to contact us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.
Produce.